Welcome, welcome, welcome. Great to be back and have another episode here with our reflections with the Course in Miracles. Thank you for participating. Thank you for listening to these reflections, this channel. And yes, I was just coming back from a journey in Europe, an extension of that light that brings us together also in our established traditions of Christmas, of Advent, the weekends in which we remember how we actually proceed towards Christmas and what that really means to us in our personal experience. I was just also invited to share with our brothers in Greece ideas about that remembrance of a new purpose. That eventually brings about that ideas about that remembrance of a new purpose, that eventually brings about that remembrance of the new birth of Christ within ourselves. And if it isn't a new purpose, what else would it be? Because it is this new purpose that gives us the feeling of, yes, I'm fulfilling my function. I'm not really here. I'm in communication and follow that guidance, follow His plan, and that is really what during this Christmas time of Christ coming into, let's say, into your life, into the world, should confirm and strengthen in yourself that innocence of that babe reborn and becoming really that complete Christ of yourself, of true self as God created you, is not really about the story as it is told, but it is about that allowance of the newness. And that is why we are teachers of A Course in Miracles. That is why we are joining in a greater purpose in which the ego of the world doesn't enter or has nothing to say, literally, because all ideas of death, of separation, are literally consumed in that. And so we are given also in the workbook lesson really that indication of that choice of how to see each other, how to choose to experience ourselves in that communication, in that contact with each other. And if you have arrived to choose always anew and to choose always for the kindness, for the lovingness that you are as God created you, and see that in your next one, in your brother, in your companions, in your loved ones, so then of course it is something very natural that you come to know that, okay, here I am, and I'm willing to let go of the meaning that I have given everything in the past, and I'm willing to really come from that newness within myself, deep within myself. And so seeing that you are here, I can just say welcome, and it's wonderful to join you in that light, in that essence that goes beyond the body identity, that goes beyond any worldly appearance. I was just teaching that in the Greek forum. It is really what Jesus teaches us in His Course in Miracles about the disappearance of the world, to see how the world disappears. And if you say Jesus Christ, or if you say the truth, or if you say the knowledge, who you are, or if you say any other word, it doesn't matter. We are not really here to make a an emphasis on any Christian indoctrination or anything that would make that special. We are here to apply it in all our experience, and that means not to make any differences anymore. And that is the invitation. And so if we are looking at also at the lesson that is given us in the workbook, Lessons of A Course in Miracles, and you are on the 351st day with me, you see there is the choice. If you are willing to see that one who walks with you completely sinless, that would be the expression of innocence, of true innocence, not of just an innocence with an opposite, but coming from, okay, the past is over, I let go of the past, I let go of my meanings that I've given to everything, coming from past ideas, and I'm opening here a space. And in that open space, I can experience a light that is not of this world. So, so yes, I'm here, you are here, we are joining in a new purpose, and we can use these words as I teach it here, coming from the Christ mind, called A Course in Miracles, or coming from my own personal experience, that in the willingness to change my mind about how I thought about you, everyone, everything, I have come to a new perspective of perception and experience within myself. And that is the awakening of my mind. And so it is, in that sense, it is the choice between experiencing peace or pain, as lesson 351 offers us. To see my sinless brother is my guide to peace, my sinful brother is my guide to pain. Yeah, here's the choice. You choose, I choose, moment by moment. And which I choose to see, I will behold, it is expressed. That will be what I see in the world. That will be how I experience myself in my relationships. And so it is all about here to come to a perspective of forgiveness, because it is forgiveness that allows us to look literally through the denial, to look through that meaning that has kind of nailed the other guy on that screen, on that wall of, well, I know who you are, and I know what you're doing, and I know everything about you. And the truth is, we don't know, right? The truth is, if we enter into that present moment of here and now and leave that space open, we can be and will allow ourselves to be surprised by a new realization of how we come together, how we can relate, how we can experience each other. And you might have some glimpse and memory, of course, how that feels in that joining of that, what is called in the Course in Miracles, holy instant, in this moment of not applying the past, not applying a judgment, not applying I know that and I know who and whatever, but to just be open-minded. And in that open-mindedness, everything is revealed. In that open-mindedness, we are shown that that new thought of that we share, of no longer condemn ourselves to what we have done in the past, but to let that be, that what he talks about, that sinlessness, that freedom of no longer hold it in a certain meaning. And there we are, and find ourselves being liberated, ourselves being forgiven ourselves. If you want to experience forgiveness for yourself and experience how you are forgiven by the word, well, then you will have to forgive yourself. And forgiveness, forgiving in the new sense, how it is taught in this Course in Miracles, of course, is about looking through that meaning of the past, not settling anymore in that what the appearance of the form is telling you, but really in that remembrance, no, there is another way at looking at that. And I can see peace instead of this. I can see peace instead of what the pain of separation has offered us since the beginning of time. This is Merry Christmas, isn't it? So on my tour in Germany and Austria and meeting many associations of myself, right, reflections of my own self, has shown me in deep gratitude that we don't need to know each other in memory from the past. We can really open up that space and experience this wonder, this immense light that we are in the joining of one self, one heart, one mind, which is literally God being present, right? God showing up and being present. And if you have such moments, then cherish them, then like give everything to that. Let that extend, let that open up to more of that. Nah? Because this is all you want, this is all we ever wanted for ourselves. Because there is peace, there is healing, there is oneness, there is self recognition, to know myself as not this, as some fabrication of the past, but really that vertical alignment that is a certainty in our mind as God created us, not as we have created ourselves and we have made up the world. That's all our own making, you know. God didn't make forms. God didn't create bodies. God did not create a world. What a revelatory recognition that is, isn't it? And now at Christmas, we just allow to drop into that quietness, into that quiet place in order to remember that we are capable of going along and sharing that new purpose without any indoctrination, neither religiously nor worldly, nor of any philosophy or how the world was defining what is right and wrong. We're going literally beyond right and wrong. Yeah, that's the expression. How wonderful to see you, because it's the expression. I'm so grateful to see and recognize myself. And if you feel like, if you have meetings and you come together and see how easy that goes and how familiar that feels, no? There is no fear there. There's just love in action, extending, sharing. There's just constant self-recognition. Then you also know that, as he expresses it in this lesson 351, that your everlasting comforter, right? Capitalized. He's talking about the Holy Spirit present. That your everlasting comforter and friend, right? The Holy Spirit is your friend, is my friend. Jesus Christ risen is our friend beside us. And my way is secure and clear. That is what the choice is, and that is guaranteed. That is given. That is the gift. That is what we open up as the Christmas gift. Wow. So choose then for me, my Father, through your voice is the prayer, for he alone gives judgment in your name. See, we are abstaining from our own judgment that we were holding against each other and keeping the frame, the appearance of the world real. We are stepping back. We are allowing that this new frequency is showing us our own newness and is showing us our relationship being completely one given as a gift from out of time. But the choice is still mine in my own mind, is still yours in your own mind. There's really nothing possible without that. And then by tomorrow's lesson 352, where he will make that emphasis between judgment and forgiveness, that this is a choice between to judge or to forgive, and he will clarify that judgment and love are opposites. They do not walk together. They do not go together. From one come all the sorrows of the world, that's from judgment, and from the other comes the peace of God himself. From forgiveness comes the peace of God. So the choice is here, as we were just saying, between pain and peace, between sorrow and peace, right? And again, forgiveness looks on sinlessness alone and judges not. How often can we make emphasis of that importance, not to judge again? And every time we come together, if it is here online or if it is here in a physical presence, it is always about forgiveness. It is always about not to judge, to let all judgment, to let all meaning of the past go. And this is really how we accept the atonement for ourselves, of which Jesus speaks at the beginning of this course in the textbook, which we are at in our Urtext, in this original version, teachings and forms as we are sharing it. And bringing it into our awareness also with the original words, so that maybe, then later on there are almost no differences anyway. But maybe in these first chapters, we are just basically at the beginning of chapter 2 of this textbook, we get also a sense of, okay, there's a very practical approach and there's an easiness to understand and to see what he means with that, especially when there are coming words into our consciousness like atonement. Atonement was considered as some self-sacrifice, or I need to flagellate myself in order to be good or become good. It was it was connected with the idea of accepting punishment in order to become worthy of heaven or becoming good. And this is now corrected. It is very much clearly only to understand of the accepting the correction of for ourselves, and it is the correction only of thoughts. It is the correction of that meaning that we have given to each other, and so to everyone and everything. So, there's just no magic going on out there of which you would need to wait, or which you would need to see then, well, has nothing to do with me, it's just happening, and I'm waiting until it comes to me. No, this is really about your change of what meaning you have given to yourself, your neighbor, and the entire world. And that changing that opens up into a space where there's no meaning whatsoever. That's where comes in the only meaning there is. That is really the light of awakening. That is God. That is creative thought, or however you want to express that. And we have also in this last basically 10 days of lessons before the year of mind training is over, 365 lessons, and we are at lesson 351 to 360. And he gives here the clarity of those wonderful words, what am I? And teaches what you are, and actually teaches in the second and third paragraph very much so about our function here, our purpose here, and what we can really remember and bring about in order to no longer be in separation and experience separation and the pain of separation. So welcome, that is my welcome to myself in that immensity of what this Course in Miracles is offering us. And so I had this break for this couple weeks because from the time schedule it was not possible to do this series of classes. And so I'm also kind of new and open-minded how this comes through in a new way, or how it will be shown and proceed in the new year, which is all just ideas in our mind, which we give and hand over to the Holy Spirit and ask him to use us, to use everything, to use any idea in order to teach us, to guide us, continue to guiding us and directing us. And of course, he will use everything that we have thought or brought here with us, and he will use it in that way of what serves the awakening the best, what serves that healing within our own mind in the fastest, in the most miraculous way. And so this section of the second section in chapter 2, the atonement as defense, starts out in the original version as the atonement is the only defense, the only defense which cannot be used destructively. And that is because while everyone must eventually join in, it was not a device which was generated by man. So it gives already a perspective. Hey, look, there is a plan, there is a tool given from out of time. It's not really from you on the timeline with all your past, with all your timely experiences. And it is, as he says, where everyone eventually will and has to join in. It is in that joining that we recognize who we are. And so the atonement principle was in effect long before the atonement itself was begun. That is also very nice to know and to accept, because it shows it doesn't have really anything to do, since we are teaching or offering each other atonement principle ideas in the Christian traditions. It actually shows it was since the beginning of time. It was always here. The moment the mind thought to be in separation, which is really an impossible thought, the atonement principle was there, was set. The principle was love, and the atonement itself was an act of love. So here you have another different definition. The principle was love, and the atonement itself an act of love, an action of bringing that into experience. Acts were not necessary before the separation. Why would you need an act if you are in the oneness, in complete union with his mind, in a complete recognition of who you are without even needing to think about who you are? So that, you see, was all only necessary in order to heal, to correct, to undo the belief of separation. And so that is what the atonement really stands for that undoing principle, the acceptance of the undoing, of separation, of fear, of everything that kept you as this separate self within your mind. Acts were not necessary before the separation because the time-space belief did not exist. You had no sense of time-space whatsoever. You were literally that is timelessness. Now we are returning. Are you ready? That is all. That is awesome. I love that. Also, how fast. We don't need to spend time here. We don't need to also to share that for hours and hours and hours. I'm just here for this moment in order to remember what is offered, and in that remembrance to accept, okay, thank you. Got it. That's what it is about. It was only after the separation that the defense of atonement and the necessary conditions for its fulfillment were planned. It became increasingly apparent that all of the defenses which man can choose to use constructively or destructively were not enough to save him. It was therefore decided that he needed a defense which was so splendid that he couldn't misuse it. See, there's a plan forged literally from out of time so that it could no longer be misused by your conceptual mind in separation. That is fortunate. That is miraculous. I love it. Wonderful. They could not misuse it, although he could refuse it. You could still refuse it and say, I don't want it. His will could not turn it into a weapon of attack. Here he makes a clear indication how we used before in our own plans and being in charge, the plan of atonement. We used it again as a weapon of attack, which is the inherent characteristic of all other defenses. All other defenses using thought systems, ideas as weapons of attack. The atonement thus becomes the only defense which was not a two-edged sword. So it was basically foolproof. It was working that way because it's no longer the conceptual mind in charge of it. It's no longer the ego involved in that principle, but only the light frequency, only your mind as light in light. The atonement actually began long before the crucifixion. Many souls offered their efforts on behalf of the separated ones, but they could not withstand the strength of the attack and had to be brought back. That sounds like an introduction to one of these Lord of the Rings movies. Beautiful, beautiful. No? It began long before the crucifixion. Many souls offered their efforts on behalf of the separated ones, but they could not withstand the strength of the attack and had to be brought back. Angels came too, but their protection was not enough because the separated ones were not interested in peace. They had already split themselves and were bent on dividing rather than reintegrating. You see, here comes already the indication what our new purpose is. We are here in experiencing our awakening for reintegrating. What we previously let out there stand as a meaning that has been given to each other and the world. And now we reintegrate that in a new openness, in that open space that will show us that nothing has really happened, nothing was really there, nor is there now, and there is space for the light of creation. Reintegrating. The levels they introduced into themselves turned against each other, and they in turn turned against each other. They established differences, they established divisions, cleavages, dispersion, and all the other concepts related to the increasing split they produced. So here you have some categories of split mind experiencing itself in differences, divisions, cleavages, dispersion, and everything that increases the split. Not being in their right minds, they turned their defenses from protection to assault and acted literally insanely. It was essential to introduce a split-proof device which could be used only to heal if it was used at all. Aren't you grateful that you are that bringer of that message to your world of something that is, as I mentioned it before, foolproof? You know, you can use it and it will work. You cannot fail in that because it's the introduction of a split-proof device which could only be used to heal, which can only be used to remember the truth, which is only to be used to wake up from the dream. That's where we find it ourselves. We find ourselves in with that offer and with our own determination to wake up from the dream, to remember our awakening. The atonement was built into the space-time belief in order to set a limit on the need for the belief and ultimately to make learning complete. The atonement is the final lesson. So we'll come in the workbook in 10 days to the final lessons, and it will be the last 5 days of the year. And you will hear about following Him, the Christ within yourself, the trust in Him. You will hear about what that brings about as your acceptance of a new fulfillment of your function, and so your acceptance of a new purpose. And here it says the atonement is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. Let all those who overestimate human intelligence remember this. Let all those who overestimate human intelligence remember this. The ability to learn has no value when change of understanding is no longer necessary. The eternally creative have nothing to learn. Only after the separation was it necessary to direct the creative force to learning, because changed behavior had become temporary, mandatory, because changed behavior had become mandatory. And of course, temporary. It is temporary too, absolutely. So human beings can learn to improve their behavior, and can also learn to become better and better learners. This increase serves. The Holy Spirit notes that this was written served. This increase serves to bring them in closer and closer accord with the sonship. But the sonship itself is a perfect creation, and perfection is not a matter of degree. Only while there are different degrees is learning meaningful. The evolution of man is merely a process by which he proceeds from one degree to the next. He corrects his previous missteps by stepping forward. We are always stepping forward, brother. This represents a process which is actually incomprehensible in temporal terms, because he returns as he progresses. Originally was goes forward rather than progresses. The atonement is the device by which he can free himself from the past as he goes ahead. This is how we started out this class today. And this is, of course, the workbook of A Course in Miracles. This is that training of changing your mind about all the thoughts, all the meanings that you have given yourself and everyone and everything. It undoes his past errors. Your past errors are being undone. And therefore, they don't reflect in a world that is just waiting to attack you. If there's nothing there anymore because you changed your mind here, then you see it. This is how it works. And then, of course, you see the world in a new light, or in the Course it talks about then, you come to vision of the real world. It undoes his past errors, thus making it unnecessary for him to keep retracing his steps without advancing toward his return. In this sense, the atonement saves time, but like the miracle which serves it, doesn't abolish it. As long as there is need for atonement, there's need for time. See, in that sense, we are not teaching that conceptually, and trying to be smart asses by just saying, well, and I'm just timeless and there's no time. And so, yes, in truth, there is no time. And this is just a fantasy and an hallucination in the mind. But as long as the atonement serves and serves you, like the miracle that serves you, miracle mindedness, it doesn't abolish time. As long as there's need for atonement, there's need for time. But the atonement as a completed plan does have a unique relationship to time. Until the atonement is finished, its various phases will proceed in time. But the whole atonement stands at its end. at this point, the bridge of the return has been built. Beautifully expressed, isn't it? And then there comes a note of to Helen. The reason this is upsetting to you is because the atonement is a total commitment. You still think this is associated with loss. See, that atonement as a complete commitment is really giving everything to that. It's like, okay, just awakening, nothing else. Everything we bring in, all our relationships, all our memories of the past, all our coming together in that newness is now dedicated to the awakening of the dream, a total commitment. This is the same mistake all the separated ones make in one way or another to associate that with loss, right? They cannot believe that the defense, which cannot attack, also is the best defense. Except for this misperception, the angels could have helped them. What do you think? The meek shall inherit the earth, as we read it in the Bible means. They will literally take it over because of their strengths. A two-way defense is inherently weak precisely because it has two edges, right? We heard before this two-edged sword. A two-way defense is inherently weak because it has two edges. It can turn against the self very unexpectedly. And of course, we all have these experiences made in the past. This tendency cannot be controlled except by miracles. The miracle turns the defense of atonement to the protection of the inner self. The miracle turns the defense of atonement to the protection of the inner self, which, as it becomes more and more secure, assumes its natural talent of protecting others. The inner self knows itself as both a brother and a son. Wow, this is very beautiful. And this was actually also, I'm using here in the annotated version, the complete and annotated edition of A Course in Miracles. This was the section 5, right? Atonement as defense. And from there it goes then to the restoration of the altar, that 6th section. And yeah, we will probably just leave it here for that moment as we are sharing here, re-entering into sharing this original version, this Urtext, and just expressing our gratitude for what is given us in this message coming from your own higher mind, Christ mind, mind awakened, in order to have a tool with you that you can use and bring along into all your daily affairs, into all your relationships, into all, no matter if it feels good or if it feels disappointing or if you feel something is still missing, you can bring this clarity with you and know that there is something offered that cannot fail, that is under the auspices and literally under control from your own light creative mind. It is not under control of the ego mind. And this is really all we need to know, because there is the release, there is the complete acceptance of, oh my God, thank you. I was waiting for that for a long time. Now it is at hand. Now it is here for me to use it. Now I can share that. I can offer that to myself. I can literally merge, join in that wave of love, light, peace, happiness, joy, and no longer believe or hold up any sacrificial idea, anything that would keep us in separation. Aren't you glad about what has been given you? Aren't you glad and super happy about that there is a download literally from out of time that you are utilizing now in your own rebirth, in that birth of that innocent babe that is born in you as you and for you, of course. And this is why we listen to the voice that speaks out of Christ's mind and that uh, is enlightening us within our own ideas, and shows us, okay, there is a completely different, another way of looking at that, and none of that is true and none of that is so as you thought it would be. So in that newness and getting used to that newness, of course, there is light energy that we can sense when we come together, when we join. This is a very, very blessed moment in which we experience that being at peace with ourselves, isn't it? Giving space and peace to all of ourselves. There's nobody excluded. There's no longer any devil or evil out there real. It is all giving reintegrated what's the expression, right? Given space and place in the heart of hearts, in our own heart of pure love, remembering who we are. Thank you. This is all I have for you today. I love you so much. And well, we see each other most probably on Christmas Eve, right? That would be in 7 days in a week, and at least for a short coming together and seeing how that blessing of Christmas is given us in order to celebrate the oneness of who we have realized to be. Thank you. Thank you. Indeed, thank you. I love you with all my heart. Here we go. Bye.